Welcome back to First Church of God. I am so thankful that you're willing to join us right here each week. Uh, I heard a story recently, and this story really spoke to me. It's a true story, and I'm not giving any names because there were no names given when I came across the story. You see, there was this young man, and growing up, his dad would tell him, "Son, if you ever go to jail or prison, understand, I will not write you. I will not take your phone calls. I am not going to put money on your commissary so that you can have things." And as a child, that was drilled into his head on a regular basis. After some time, when the young man committed a crime, he was going to be going to prison for 15 years. And in his mind, he thought his father would forget about what he had said. And when the son was on trial and found guilty, the father once again told him that uh, we'll hear from you in 15 years. He thought that his father was joking. And then he said to himself, if my father won't talk to me or send me money, my mother will. While in prison, he tried to call them but never got a reply. He wrote them letters, but they never answered. 8 years passed, and he gets a letter from his dad. It said, I told you that I would never write you, but I feel I owe this to you. Your mother has passed away. The next time you hear from me is when someone else has passed away and you get out. P.S. I love you. Keep your head up. Since he hadn't heard from his parents in all that time, he started growing hatred in his heart towards his father because he felt that his father was the reason that he could not connect with his mother. Then he decided in his heart that when he was released, he was going to take his anger out and his aggression out on his dad. 7 years passed, the release date came, and he arranged for some friends to pick him up. They were hanging out together, laughing and joking and having a good time. He was very distracted during this time of fellowship with his friends, and the only person on his mind was his dad. He had so much anger bottled up within him that he wanted to express himself to his father so he could feel good about himself. He leaves the party and he calls his father and he says, I've got a bone to pick with you. The father said, well, the least you could have done was to call to see how I was doing before you tell me that you've got a problem with me. The son responded, well, you didn't care how I was doing, so why would I care about you? The father said, well, you cared enough to call. He said, yeah, because I want to tell you how I feel. And the father said, I don't care how you feel. I would have never called you. The son gets mad and says, you're supposed to be my dad, but okay, where are you? And the father said, I'm in the same place I've always been, the house you grew up in, and I'm always going to be here. Soon there was a knock on the door, and the father said, come in, the door is open. The son walked through in anger, with an angry face, ready to take it out on his dad, when he saw that his dad was sitting there with a pistol in his lap. The son goes from angry to cautious, and the dad says, I know you're mad at me, but have a seat. The son refused to sit down. The father said, I said, have a seat. Now tell me what's on your mind. The son asked, how can you not allow my mother to talk to me the entire time I was in prison? You're supposed to be my father. That's my mother. How could you do this to me? When the son had calmed down, the father said, son, you did this to yourself. I told you ever since you were little that if you ever went to jail, I would not write you, call you, or put money in your commissary. Me supporting you while you were in jail would mean that I support what you were doing that put you there. And if I allow you to be put in that prison because of your behavior, or I send you money or give you calls or write you letters to be your therapist so that you don't feel alone, I'm not making you accountable for what you did. When you choose to do that crime, when you chose to do that crime, you didn't think that you would get caught. But when you chose to do that crime, you chose to take yourself away from us. Son, if you would have never done the crime, you would have been here talking to your mother and me. And if you would have never done the crime, me and you could have had a better relationship. If you had never done the crime, you would have been someplace in life, but you chose the easy way out. Now you have to deal with the consequences. Son, smart people hold themselves accountable. Ignorant people look for sympathy. You're not going to get any sympathy. When I raised you not to put yourself in those situations. The son said, "You know what, Dad? I get what you're saying. But what if it wasn't my fault?" The father said, "Son, it was always your fault." You see, Dad, that's the thing. It was my friends who committed the crime. I didn't do anything. "No," said the father, "it's your fault. You chose to hang out with them, knowing they were doing wrong. Do you remember when your mother and I used to say, if your friends jumped off the bridge, would you jump off with the bridge as well? And you would always say you wouldn't do it because you weren't a follower. You want me to have sympathy because your friends jumped off the bridge. Now, take into account, my son, the moment you take accountability is the moment that you become a man. I love you, son." The stud stood and he walked out. But then he understood each other, him and his dad. He went out and got into the car with his friends, and he began to think about it for a moment, and he realized in 15 years the friends hadn't changed one bit. They were not getting anywhere in life. And the next day he cut off all ties with all those friends, those old associates. And when he started holding himself accountable for the decisions that he made, it is the choices that you make in life that will get you in certain places, whether good or bad. The choices that you make is because of your free will. And the person who always holds themselves accountable is the person that will always grow. In Luke chapter 15, Jesus tells 3 different parables, and each one is connected because somebody is lost or has lost something. So look with me in my favorite parable. It's got to be. I've preached more on the prodigal son than any other of the parables. It says, starting in verse 11, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the young son got together all that he had, and he set off for a distant country. And there he squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything there, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out as a citizen of the country, who set himself to the fields to feed pigs. When he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything, when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death?" But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion and ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Now, that is a beautiful and powerful parable. And there is so many things. Each time I read this parable, I find something new. When the prodigal son in the parable said, "I want my share of the inheritance," he was essentially saying, "Dad, I want you dead." Now, in those days, the older son got a third of the inheritance, while the older son got 2/3 of the inheritance, while that 1/3 was given to the younger son. Or if there were other siblings, that 1/3 would have been divided among all of them. But I noticed in this parable at no point does the father reach out to the son. The father never writes him, never calls him, never sends him anything. Even with the son not there, I believe that his heart was with him. He longed for his son. We don't exactly know when the heart's son became so hard towards his father that he wanted his inheritance. Author Damon West was sentenced to 65 years in prison, and he wrote this book called The Coffee Bean. I love the story. He is currently serving his 65 years on parole outside of prison. The idea behind the book, it says, if you drop a carrot into boiling water, what happens to the carrot? The carrot becomes soft. If you drop an egg into boiling water, what happens to the egg? Even though it has that hard shell to protect it, it becomes hard on the inside. That's your heart. If your heart becomes hardened, you become incapable of giving and receiving love. But if you drop a coffee bean into boiling water, magic happens. The water becomes coffee. As Christ followers, you have the power in you. 1 John 4:4, you, dear children, are from God and have overcome them because the one who is in you is greater than the one in the world. If you want to be able to have a better story of what happens when you allow Jesus control of your life, here's a few things I think you might want to start doing. Letter S, this spells the word story. Letter S, serve. The prodigal son, when he was in the pig pen, he was so hungry that he wanted to eat the pods that the pigs were eating. He longed for them. This would have been a very offensive part of the story because Jewish tradition, pigs are unclean animals. The prodigal was wallowing with the pigs, and the difference was the mud. When you walk around, woe is me, you are wallowing in self-pity. Self-pity will give you a hunger for what isn't good for you. If all of us came down front here, came down in the front of the church, and we piled up all of our problems, and then we got to pick somebody else's problem, 10 to 1, we'd pick our own problem because a lot of people's problems seem a lot worse than our own. To stop acting like a pig, the prodigal son came to his senses. He was willing to go and be a servant of his father. The way out of the pig pen is start to look beyond yourself and to the needs of others. Look for places to show kindness and serve. There are some at the nursing home that nobody has come to say hi to. Nobody's come to visit. They haven't had a visitor for months or years. Their hope has been taken away from them. And if you go and ask the desk who hasn't had a visitor, they would give you a list, and that could become your new ministry. And both you and the one you visit will be blessed. You start living outside yourself. This is when you become Jesus to others. You become the flesh of Jesus to the stinky people, the hurting people, the sick people, the marginalized, and those trapped in their own self-pity. Jesus said, when you've done it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. What you have desired from others, what you desire from others to give to you, it's a primal need. If you'll start giving it, you find yourself receiving it. You want to be wanted, become available. It's not about your abilities, it's about your availability. In serving, one caution, you need to put up a few boundaries so that you're not enabling someone else's bad behavior. 1 Peter 4:10, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms. Or Proverbs 19:17, whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. Letter T is trust. In the Paralympics downhill skiing, the competitor has to trust someone who has eyesight to guide them down the hill. They go before them, giving them directions as to where to turn and where to slow down, where to speed up. It's complete trust, or maybe we used to say blind trust. Trust is an overflow of purpose. We need to know our why. When you lose your way, when you lose your why, you lose your way. Purpose isn't based on talent or ability, but it's living outside yourself. And as we put our trust in Jesus, there is this transformation that takes place from the inside out. And the sign that you are being transformed is how you love others. The opposite of trust is worry. And if we're going to pray, we can't worry. And if we're going to worry, we can't pray. Hebrews 12:1, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run the race with perseverance, the race that's marked out for us. Get our eyes on Jesus and let's start trusting him. Letter O is observe. Observe what God is doing. And jump in. Surfers don't create the waves that they ride. They sit and they wait for the wave that has been created by God and they get on it. Love does not stop to ask permission. We're all going to face battles. We're going to face battles all the time. The secret, don't give up. You don't have to win every battle, but you have to fight in every battle. Some battles you're going to feel defeated, and some you're going to feel like the victor. And it's okay to lose as long as you don't give up. Romans 10:13. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. I love that word saved because in Greek it means restored, made new, healed, made right with God. Some of you have been going through some battles, some very difficult battles in your jobs, in your families, and it seems like everyone is against you. Things might be easier if you chose a different career, but keep in mind, God has called you and He has equipped you for what you're doing. Don't give up the fight. Romans 8:28, all things work to the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose. And while the battle is on, I triple double dog dare you to daily read, if not multiple times in the day, read Psalm 91. But look at what it says in verse 11 and 12. Where He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all of your ways. Not you command the angels, He commands the angels. So you need to go to Him and say, hey, would you please tell your angels to come and fight for me? Uh, and then verse 12, the angels, will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against the stone. Letter R, return to your hot spot. Revelation 2:5, consider how far you have fallen. Repent and do the things you did at first. There are others that are watching your story more than they're listening to the one you're telling. And if you have slipped away in your relationship with Jesus, He hasn't given up on you. He hasn't moved. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. His mercy is new every day. Now go back to the disciplines that you practiced when you were on fire for Jesus. And part of that is to begin telling your story. They overcame the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Letter Y, yoke with Jesus. I don't know, yoke? What's that? Are we talking about eggs? No. Matthew 11:29. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart, and you will find rest for your soul. A yoke is used when you team up oxen, and together they are powerful. An oxen by itself can pull a little bit more than its own weight. But when you team two oxen together, they can pull triple to four times their own weight. When you yoke yourself, when you connect yourself with Jesus, you're going to be doing as He does. And you begin to say, you're the more powerful. I'm going to listen and do as you do. And you begin to think like He does. You begin to respond like He does. You begin to grow in love and show love because He is love. You don't become a puppet. You become a fountain of His love. And the love that He has for you flows into you and right back out of you, and it continues to refill. Where are you with Jesus? Are you yoked with Him? Or are you trying to do your own thing? Because as long as you continue to try to do your own thing, you're only going to be frustrated. Put your trust in Him and follow Him, for He loves you. And if you've never accepted Jesus as your Savior, would you please contact me? I'd love to talk to you about it because His ways are higher and better than ours, and He loves you with an everlasting love. As my friend Nathan always says, God loves you, and I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Blessings, friends.